Hello and welcome back to Telecomando RC. I've done some previous videos where I'm talking about just a touring car, particularly this one, the BD10 by Yokomo. I talked about weight distribution, how if you're getting into it and you want to save some money and you already have shorty packs, you can get a shorty pack and then use the space to distribute some weight so that you can make the weight requirement for USGT. Well, now we're going to be talking about mass distribution or center of mass, how to find an approximate location, how to know approximately where your mass is centered. And for this, you really just need three axes. Think about it as a coordinate plane, right? X, Y, Z. And you have to find just a little area. If you can find just a 2 centimeter box or a 2 centimeter cube, your center is going to be somewhere in there. Now, 2 centimeters is quite a bit, but for RCs, it's good enough, close enough. So first thing you need to do is, I'm going to ignore the body, so I'm not going to use the body for now. But you do want to plug everything in. So you plug everything in just so the wires aren't dangling, because now you have free mass. And this, I'm going to say, is negligible because they don't even weigh a gram. So I'm going to ignore that weight. So keep that in mind. The next thing that you want is just grab one of your batteries. So I'm using my shorty. I could have used my other long battery, but I'm going to use the shorty for this. And to make sure you have a flat surface, you can just use your alcohol level and just make sure this level is flat. And the only thing that you're going to do is you're going to look for a box. So you're going to take this battery and this edge here, you want this to run alongside an axis of your car. And then you're just going to move your car. So just to give you an idea, let's say this is the battery and this is the table. So pretend it's a transparent table. You're just going to move your car until it starts to tip over. Once it tips, you would just mark or make a note of that area. Then you move it to the other side. Once it tips, you mark that area, and then you're going to have a space in between, maybe. Maybe you'll hit the same exact line every time. I doubt it. This method is an approximation. It's not that perfect. But then your center mass would be between those two lines. And then you would find your left and right, your relative center or an approximate center left and right. Then you're going to do the same thing, but you're going to go front to back. So you're going to slide your vehicle until it tips, mark it, slide your vehicle until it tips, mark it. And between those two lines is going to be that center. So then imagine you have a line going this way and then a line going this way. Right where they intersect, that would be your approximate center mass when it comes to left and right. So I'm going to place my battery here. Notice the car falls, so that means that I have to move it forward. There it's staying still, so let me just try to move it until it starts to tip over. Alright, so it starts to tip over when the battery is right about there. So I would just make a line right here. Now I'm going to try to see when it tips over the other way. So the line, just for reference, it's about halfway where the fan is. Now I'm going to move it the other way and see where it starts tipping forward. And actually it's about half of the fan again. Actually it's before the fan. No. There we go, just before the fan. All right, just before the fan. Oops, I moved it. So the first time it tipped back, it was about halfway into the fan. Then forward, it was just in front of the fan. So my center of mass is right about here, right about there. This is my center as far as front and weight bias. So I'm right about here, which is actually pretty good. It's somewhat centered between front and back. And if I measure Yes, I'm using a ruler instead of tape. It's actually pretty good. So I'm looking at about 13.5 from here to here. So I have a little more weight toward the back than the front of the car, which is one of the reasons why I added these weights to the front. Now keep in mind that once you fit the body, I'm doing this without the body so you can see, when you fit the body's actually going to change it as well, so the body does make a difference. So you will notice a slight difference when you run your USGT body versus your VTA body, assuming you're using the vehicle for both things. That's why you will notice that on my VTA, when I placed the weights, I actually placed them more toward the front of the body. That was the reason why, so I could get a little more weight in the front. But anyway, that being said, so now you're going to do the same thing, but now you're going to go left and right to try to find it. So you're just going to move the vehicle again till it starts tipping over. And then you can use a little piece of masking tape, for example. You could put it on the chassis just to make a note, and then remove it, and then go to the other way, just as a reference point. But right now I'm just moving it to the right, and I'm moving it until the vehicle wants to just tip over. All right, so it will be right about here. That's where it wants to tip over, which is right at this gap. I can actually feel it. So it's tipping over right here, right where this opening begins. Now I'm going to do it again, but I'm going to do it to the left. So I'm going to go left now. And I keep moving the car until it starts to tip over. All right. There we go. And I'll move the battery. There we go. I'll put my nail there. And it's right about here, this other gap. So then my strip would actually be right where these screws are. So it's pretty centered left and right with this setup. So if you haven't watched how I distributed my weights in previous videos, I have 4 here on the front, and then I have 9 here below the receiver box. But between the electronics and the battery, it's pretty balanced left and right. But that's all you need to do. Just use your battery, go to one edge, see where it starts tipping, make a note, go to the other, see where it starts tipping, and then you know. So, for example, let's say if you place the battery here and it started tipping right there, and then it started tipping right here, you know your weight bias is on this side, so you're going to want to add weight to the opposite or remove weight from that side just to shift your mass, your center mass over. Now I'm really happy with the mass distribution left-right, and I actually like the front-back. It works for me. Left-right, you want something to be centered because you're going to be making left turns and right turns. So you don't want to bias one way or the other. It's going to affect your turning. But front rear, that's where you may pick and choose if you want forward bias and rearward bias, because depending on your driving style, it can make a difference. Now, what if you're saying, what about center mass, the height of the center mass? Okay, that one's a little more challenging. Generally, I take an edge. If it's a straight, just perfectly straight edge, this one's kind of rounded, but if it's a perfectly straight edge, you can also do an approximation. Now, for that one, you really want the body on. I'm not going to put the body, this is just for demonstration, but you're just going to set the car on its wheels, and you're just going to do the same thing, but you're going to want to keep a similar distance. And then once the car starts wanting to tip over, that's where it is, so you would mark it. So it's just, this is just above the wheel nuts. All right, so it's just above the wheel nuts. But then again, this is rounded, so you want something that's perfectly, if you have just a piece of maybe some pine, any type of board that's just has a straight cut instead of this here, this rounded edge, that's a lot better. But anyway, then you would flip the car. So you already did this. Now flip the car, and you're going to find the other one. So it's just above the nut, and now it actually stops right about there. Do the same thing. And all right, so now we're right about here. So it means that the first time it tipped here. The second time it tipped here. So my center mass is somewhere here. So it's pretty close to where the hubs are, which is pretty good. So I'm centered probably just below this here. Now, once you add the body again, it would probably be at the hubs if I add the body, just because of the weight of the body. But that's how you can get an approximation of where your mass is centered. Front, rear, left, right, as well as top down. So you'll find that little cube, let's say, of where your center mass is. So my center of mass would be somewhere in there where my spur is, which is actually pretty good because that's pretty close to where the two belts come in. But anyway, other than that, again, for those of you that are getting into kit touring cars, plan on going into USGT or VTA, this is one method that you can use so that you can find your mass distribution on your touring car. And actually, it works not just on touring cars. You can use this on other vehicles too, such as your short course trucks. You're just gonna need something that's a little taller because of the taller suspension. So you can use this on other vehicles. It's just super easy on touring cars because they have a flat chassis. All right, well, other than that, thank you very much for watching Telecomando RC. Go ahead, like, subscribe. If you have any other methods, go ahead and leave them in the comments below. Please share your knowledge if you are a veteran of the sport, and help us help more people join the hobby. Thank you so much for watching. Be good.